Hello everyone, my name is Gabriel and welcome back to my channel. On this channel, I like to make videos about music and about my musical journey and what I learn. So if that's something you're into, then consider subscribing to this channel. As some of you may know, a few months ago I had the opportunity to conduct a full opera production. It was a very humbling experience and I wanted to share with you what I've learned along the way in this video. So if you are like me, a conductor who works with singers, or you're a pianist who accompanies singers, or you are a singer yourself, or you just love singing in opera, then this video might be interesting for you. Now, before we start, I wanted to show you this link I found a while ago, which is kind of a great way to procrastinate. Okay, so for the record, this video is not sponsored by the Blob Opera project. So you'll find the link of this web page in the description below the video, and it consists of 4 singers. From left to right we have soprano, alto, tenor and then the bass. So this is the bass and he can sing an A major scale, and then when you change the mouse from front to back he also changes the vowels like this. The great thing is, if you take another voice, for example the soprano, all the lower voices will sing together and they will automatically find the right notes of the harmony. And so that's how you can create melodies, for example, until here. Okay, now let's get back to the opera. So I've been working with singers for many years now. I have accompanied and coached them at the piano. I conducted from the piano a couple of musicals. I accompanied singers in an orchestra setting. I also assisted on a couple of opera productions. But even with this experience, this was the first time I conducted an opera production from start to finish. So you can imagine, before the first rehearsal, I was really feeling like... So what opera are we talking about? Let me search for him. Oh, here he is. I'm glad you asked. It was the last opera of Mozart, La Clemenza di Tito. So what I wanted to share with you in this video were 6 things I've learned along the way during this whole opera productions, or things that were a good reminder thanks to this opera production. So let's start with the first topic. Conducting an opera involves a lot of time management. I remember the first reading with the orchestra where we needed to rehearse the full opera music in 5 hours of rehearsal time. Now, because I like math, I did some arithmetic. I counted the total available minutes in 5 hours of rehearsal time. I subtracted time for pauses and extra time, you never know. I then divided this by the total amount of musical pieces in this opera. The result was that we had an average of a bit more than 9 minutes per musical piece of the opera. And then I felt a bit like, because the musical pieces of the opera were, let's say, between 3 and 7 minutes. When I saw the result of this calculation, I really understood how much the time management of this first reading rehearsal was important. Another thing I've learned during this opera production is that every soloist has their unique personality. Of course, this sounds obvious, and in my role of a conductor, I always try to create the best possible working relationships in order to get the music done. But I found it interesting to recognize and to remind myself that working with a group really entails working with every individual in this group. So it almost felt for me like conducting a piano concerto or a violin concerto, but with 6 different soloists. And every soloist had their background, their preferred way of communication, the things they liked and they disliked. And I have the impression that the way of conducting and of communicating really needed to be adapted to every one of those soloists. Another thing I've learned is that in an opera production, there are many different teams working together hand by hand. So only talking about those teams directly related to the stage. We have the musicians in the orchestra, we have the soloists on stage, we have the choir consisting of more singers, we have the makeup artist, we have the light crew, we have technical crews, we have the stage director, we have the costumes, and we have the scenery, and I'm probably forgetting even more. So all the people in all the different teams are all interconnected in order to produce one final output, the opera. And keeping track of the different disciplines and of the different people in all these different teams, I found very interesting to remind myself how important it was during this opera production. Another thing that I found fascinating was that the conductor could be seen as a translator between the singers and the orchestra. I'll give you one example. When we are rehearsing and we need to restart again from a certain point, which isn't the start, then orchestra musicians should know of what bar we start, because that's what in the parts. But the soloists, they sing on stage by heart, so they might not necessarily know at what bar number we are starting again. So the soloists, they should know at what text we are starting again. But the text is not necessarily written in the parts of the orchestra musicians. So this link between both worlds is translated by the conductor. In the same idea as the preceding point, I found it was interesting to really collaborate very closely with the stage director. Indeed, with the stage director Eric Gobin, we had many meetings before the first rehearsal with the singers, so we could be on the same wavelength about the whole opera. So in these meetings, we talked about all the possible links we could find between the music and the theatrical part, and how to make these links even more close. And then we were arriving at a point which I found fascinating, and that was to understand who is leading between conductor and soloists. So this fundamental question is probably best answered on a case-by-case basis, and in the best case scenario, no one really leads, but instead we are making the music together as one. So these were a couple of things I wanted to share with you about this last opera production, La Clemenza di Tito. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts. Leave them in the comments below and we can have a chat about it. Oh, and by the way, if you like this content and you want to stay tuned for more, then feel free to subscribe to this channel. Until next time, take care.